Have you ever wondered how everything in life seems to have its own timing? It is quite a fascinating concept to ponder upon, isn't it? Today we're going to embark on an exploration of this concept as we delve into a profound piece of wisdom from Ecclesiastes 3:1-8. This scriptural passage paints a vivid image of life's ebb and flow, showcasing the idea of time and seasons in our existence. In the heart of Ecclesiastes, we find a poetic discourse that tells us there is a time for everything and a season for every activity under the heavens. This passage, penned thousands of years ago, resonates deeply even today, reminding us of the cyclical nature of life and the importance of divine timing. This is not just a passage, it's a roadmap to understanding life's rhythms, a guide to appreciating our journey on this earthly plane. So let us delve into these profound verses and uncover the wisdom they hold for us. To everything there is a season and a time to every purpose under the heaven, a time to be born and a time to die. Let's pause for a moment and carefully unpack these profoundly evocative lines from Ecclesiastes. They paint a picture of life in its rawest form, a continuous cycle of beginnings and endings, of births and deaths. This isn't merely a poetic observation of life, but an affirmation of the divine plan. Each birth, each death, every tear and every laugh, they are not random happenings, but part of a grander design. A design curated by the divine, a design that gives purpose to every moment under the heavens. Just as seasons change, so do the phases of our lives. The first verse is a gentle reminder of this. It tells us that everything, every joy, every sorrow, every challenge, every triumph, has its own season. Nothing is permanent. The winter of our discontent will eventually give way to the spring of hope, and the summer of our joy will eventually fade into the autumn of reflection. The second verse goes a step further. It tells us that there is a time to be born and a time to die. This is not just about our physical existence, but also about the countless little births and deaths we experience throughout our lives. The birth of a new idea, the death of an old habit, the birth of a relationship, the death of prejudice. Each of these births and deaths shapes us, molds us, and prepares us for the next season of our existence. These two verses together present life as a journey that is filled with change, but change that is not random or chaotic. It is change that is part of a divine rhythm, a rhythm that gives meaning and purpose to our existence. Understanding these verses allows us to see the rhythm of life and the purpose of our existence. A time to kill and a time to heal. A time to break down and a time to build up. A time to weep and a time to laugh. A time to mourn and a time to dance. A time to cast away stones and a time to gather stones together. A time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing. Now let's delve into these verses and uncover the profound wisdom they hold. At first glance, they might seem to present a rather stark contrast, but in reality, they beautifully encapsulate the balance of life. Take the first part, a time to kill and a time to heal. It can be interpreted not necessarily as a physical act of violence, but rather as a metaphorical representation of ending things that no longer serve us, to make way for healing and growth. Next, we have a time to break down and a time to build up. This implies that sometimes things need to fall apart to be rebuilt stronger and better. It's a cycle of creation and destruction that keeps the world turning. The verses then go on to talk about a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance. Here, we are reminded that life is a blend of joys and sorrows, highs and lows. There will be moments of immense joy and laughter, and there will be times of sorrow and mourning. It's essential to embrace both, as they are part and parcel of the human experience. Finally, a time to cast away stones, and a time to gather stones together, a time to embrace, and a time to refrain from embracing. This signifies that there are times when we need to let go, and times when we need to hold on. Knowing when to do each is a critical part of navigating life's journey. These verses teach us not only about the balance of life, but also about the importance of patience and understanding. Every moment, every emotion, every experience has its place and its time. Even in the most challenging times, there is a purpose and a time for everything. A time to get and a time to lose, a time to keep and a time to cast away, a time to rend and a time to sow, a time to keep silence, and a time to speak, a time to love and a time to hate, a time of war and a time of peace. These verses from Ecclesiastes chapter 3 verses 6 to 8 call us to an understanding of discernment, of knowing when to act and when to hold back. In the rhythm of life, there's a moment for acquisition and a moment for loss. It's about understanding that there are seasons of abundance and seasons of scarcity. The choice to keep or to cast away speaks to discernment in our relationships, our possessions, and even our thoughts. It's about knowing what to hold close and what to let go, and understanding that not everything is meant to be permanent. The verse continues with a time to rend and a time to sow. It may seem contradictory, but it actually emphasizes the cyclical nature of life. We tear apart to rebuild, we break to mend. It's an ongoing cycle of destruction and reconstruction that fosters growth and development. Then we come to a time to keep silence and a time to speak. This is about the power of words and the wisdom in silence. It's about knowing when to voice our thoughts and when to listen, when to advise and when to learn. Finally, we explore the duality of love and hate, war and peace. These verses remind us that life isn't always about joy and peace. There are times of conflict, times of hatred, but these experiences don't define us. Instead, they shape us, they strengthen us, and they teach us to appreciate the moments of love and peace even more. These verses remind us that every season of life has its own purpose, and that we must learn to navigate through them wisely. It's about understanding the ebb and flow of life, and accepting that every moment, whether good or bad, is a part of our journey. So, what does Ecclesiastes 3:1-8 teach us about life and the times we live in? As we've journeyed through these verses together, we've seen how they provide a profound map of life's cyclical nature, a poetic affirmation that everything under the sun has its appointed time. We began by unpacking the first two verses, which set the stage for the entire passage. They remind us that there's a time for everything, a season for every activity under the heavens. This idea of timing is more than just the ticking of the clock. It's about understanding the rhythm of life and the wisdom that comes from recognizing when to act and when to wait. Then, we delved into verses 3-5. Here, we found a series of contrasting activities, a time to plant and a time to uproot, a time to tear down and a time to build, a time to mourn and a time to dance. It's a stark reminder that our lives are filled with highs and lows, beginnings and endings, joy and sorrow. These contrasting experiences are not arbitrary, they are purposeful, designed to shape us, to refine us, and to help us grow. Next, we explored verses 6-8, which continue the theme of juxtaposition. A time to search and a time to give up, a time to keep and a time to throw away, a time to love and a time to hate. These verses nudge us to consider the balance in our lives, to question whether we're holding on when we should be letting go, or giving up when we should be persevering. Throughout this passage, the recurring theme of time asks us to consider our own lives in the context of the seasons. Are we in a season of planting or uprooting, mourning or dancing, searching or giving up? Recognizing our season can give us perspective, and understanding that these seasons are not permanent can give us hope. The wisdom of Ecclesiastes 3:1-8 lies in its invitation to embrace the season we are in, to learn from it, and to grow through it. It's a call to mindfulness, to be present in our current season, to engage fully with it, whether it's a time of joy or sorrow, building or tearing down. But it's also a reminder of the divine orchestration of our lives. These seasons are not random. They are chosen times, divinely appointed for a purpose. They are part of a grand design, a cosmic rhythm that moves us, shapes us, and guides us on our journey. Remember, whatever season you are in, it is a time that God has chosen, and there is a purpose for it. Embrace it, learn from it, and grow through it. This is the heart of Ecclesiastes 3:1-8, a timeless wisdom that can guide us through the ever-changing seasons of our lives. Thank you for watching, and please remember to subscribe.